Can we just talk?
Metro FM Talk with Faith Mangope. Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
It's 13 minutes after 8 o'clock, of course. So the conversation continues this evening. And as promised, we do have a former Eskom and Transnet CEO Brian Molefe joining us for the conversation. And we're going to speak about all matters, including the latest one where Corruption Watch filed a notice of withdrawal against Mr. Molefe to be declared a delinquent director for alleged violation during his tenure at Eskom. And we're going to unpack, and I mean, this is the first time that we're actually having this kind of conversation with Brian Molefe regarding state-owned enterprises, his tenure during these state-owned enterprises, as well as where we're looking at salvaging some of the issues and the allegations of corruption that exist within SOEs. So let me give you some context. In 2018, Corruption Watch launched the application in which it asked the Pretoria High Court to declare that Mr. Molefe acted in a manner that amounted to gross negligence in the performance of his duties at Eskom. It also asked the court to declare that the declaration of delinquency against Mr. Molefe and former Eskom board of directors, we've got Mark Pamensky, Anoj Singh, Veneta Klein and Zitembe Khoza, subsist for 7 years in respect of public and private companies. In a notice dated 7 June, Corruption Watch then withdrew the application against Molefe by agreement between the parties. Joining us on the show this evening to shed some light in terms of where are we when it comes to state-owned enterprises, as well as his role in state-owned enterprises, is indeed former Eskom CEO Brian Molefe. Mr. Molefe, thank you so much for joining us this evening and welcome to Metro FM Talk.
Thank you very much.
Perhaps let's start with your feeling and your sentiment following this withdrawal now by Corruption Watch. The application, obviously it was by an agreement between the both parties, but surely it must be a sigh of relief, especially from this being filed in 2018.
Yes, you can call it a sigh of relief, but I knew that it would come, and that it was a matter of time, and that they did not have a case. That it was just a matter of time for them to come and say that they are withdrawing. Alternatively, that they will proceed, in which case we would have had them for breakfast. We would have them apart if the matter had proceeded. So they knew that they had no case. They knew that they could not sustain the allegations that they were making. And that is why the case was launched in 2018. And as the dominant litis, they were not in a hurry to finish it. Whereas we were. We wanted it to come before the court and get it done. But for 7 years, they just dragged their feet. They would not get a court date. The pleadings were closed a long time ago. They've had our side of the story for a very long time. And instead of proceeding to ask for a court date, they were just not doing anything.
Well, Corruption Watch has also said that its withdrawal of the case against you was not necessarily an exoneration, but came as a result of poor formulation of the charges as they preceded the final report of Chief Justice Raymond Zondo State Capture Commission. So are you saying, nope, it's nothing to do with the way in which the poor formation or formulation of charges were formed, but rather because they themselves did not even have a case in the first place?
I think they're talking rubbish, with due respect, because Corruption Watch cannot claim that their English fails them in the formulation of the allegations, that they could not find the right words or the right English, which is what pure formulation is. But even if that were the case, they could have amended their pleadings at any time. They could have just submitted the supplementary affidavit and changed whatever they wanted to change so that the matter can proceed. So they are clutching at straws now to say that the charges were poorly formulated. I mean, the person who submitted the founding affidavit was Mr. Lewis, whose first language is English, I presume. And he's now claiming that his English failed him when he was drafting the founding affidavit or making the allegations. That is rubbish.
Mr. Molefe, you are known for your roles as CEO of the Public Investment Corporation, being Group CEO of Transnet, and also being Eskom's CEO. We're facing a situation in the country right now where the state-owned enterprises are no longer performing at their optimal. What do you think went wrong?
I don't know. I don't know what went wrong, because I think that if the CEOs or the board or the minister was focused on the performance of the public entities, there's nothing wrong with those entities. They are perfectly capable of being run profitably or with a surplus. They are perfectly capable of delivering the services that they're supposed to deliver. So I don't know what the problem is. Perhaps it is in the leadership of those SOEs. Perhaps in the case of those entities, the minister did not give them sufficient vision and motivation to do what they're supposed to do. The Minister of Public Enterprises.
We're going to take a break.
I did say at the Zondo Commission that the Minister of Public Enterprises, Mr. Pravin, is smooth talking, but there is nothing that comes out of his smooth talk.
Mr. Molefe, we're going to continue the conversation. You and I have got lots to unpack together. Also, the Minister of Public Enterprises, Mr. Pravin Gordhan. We're going to talk a little bit about him. We're also going to be talking about Eskom, as well as during your tenure at Eskom, in terms of some of the developments there. We're also going to be talking about your role at Transnet and how Transnet actually was working during your tenure. And if you've got a question, of course, the conversation has already started with the former Eskom CEO Brian Molefe. He's in conversation with us this evening. It is 22 minutes after 8 o'clock. Of course, we're in conversation this evening, a very candid conversation, I might say, with the former Eskom CEO Brian Molefe. He's joining us to shed light in terms of how SOEs are run during his tenure, even at the helm of those state-owned entities. Mr. Molefe, I want us to talk a little bit about also the Zondo Commission, because, beginning with the Zondo Commission, there were certain recommendations that were made by the very same Zondo Commission, where the report in the Zondo Commission, especially on Transnet, said, and I quote, that law enforcement agencies need to conduct such further investigations as may be necessary with a view to the possible prosecution of yourself as well as other mentioned individuals on that, including Mr. Thamsanqa Giyani, on charges of corruption and racketeering in relation to cash payments that you allegedly received during the Gupta compound visits around 2010 to 2018. The Zondo report also further stated that law enforcement agencies, amongst others, conduct such further investigations as may be required. As we're speaking right now, there was a matter that was heard before the Johannesburg High Court in May on charges of the contravention of the Public Finance Management Act, that is the PFMA, and fraud. And the case, of course, we now know has been postponed to the 11th of October in 2024 for an actual trial date. The charges include fraud, corruption, money laundering stemming from the locomotives transaction advisory tender awarded to the McKinsey-led consortium in 2012, resulting in the procurement of 1,064 locomotives valued of over 54 billion rand. Mr. Molefe, when it comes to this particular matter that sees itself in court, the Johannesburg High Court being of late, do you still maintain your innocence? And what was the nature of involvement when it comes to this procurement of locomotives? Because unfortunately, the allegations are severe. And I would really love to hear from your side in terms of what do these allegations mean and where do they stem from? Where do these allegations of fraud, money laundering, racketeering actually come from? Mr. Molefe, are you there?
Hi, I wish you were listening to yourself very carefully. You will remember that Tulima Donzela started all of this state capture things and so on. He recommended that there be a commission of inquiry into all these state capture allegations. And recommendations was that the commission of inquiry must investigate further, right? So the Commission of Inquiry was instituted and it investigated. Its recommendation, rather than saying that these people are guilty of these crimes after we've investigated, we find that they have committed these crimes. Its recommendation was that there should be further investigation. It did not definitively say that we are guilty of those crimes. It said there should be further investigation, which was unfortunate because Tulima Donsela had said that they must investigate. They now turned around and asked others to investigate. Now, the allegations at the High Court in Johannesburg now don't include money laundering. They don't include racketeering. They don't include corruption. I have not been charged with corruption. I have not been charged with money laundering. I have not been charged with racketeering. The charges are benign allegations of contravention of the PSMA and fraud. And the fraud that they're charging us with is actually stretching the imagination if you look at the indictment itself. So it's very interesting that even our warrant of arrest, on which our bail is based and the bail conditions are based, include money laundering, racketeering, and corruption. And because of the severity of those charges, the bail was set very high. At 50,000 rand, they took my passport, my freedom, and so on.
Was that the bail application, Mr. Molefe, if I'm understanding? So on that, was it on that charge sheet that they said, I'm just trying to understand, where did they say the money laundering part? Where did they include that?
On the warrant of arrest.
On the warrant of the arrest, not necessarily the charging, on the charge sheet.
Yes. So now the warrant of arrest gets issued and you are charged. And the warrant of arrest says racketeering, money laundering, and corruption. So on the basis of that, the magistrate says, this is very serious. I'm going to set the bail at 50,000 and take away your passport and your freedom and so on and so forth. When we get into court and they present the indictment, which is the charge sheet, it doesn't have money laundering. It doesn't have racketeering. It doesn't have corruption. It's basically two charges: violation of the PSMA and fraud. And the fraud that they are alleging, it just boggles the mind because it does not meet the elements of the crime of fraud as defined in the textbooks of criminal law of what fraud is: a misrepresentation intentionally designed to deceive somebody. The allegations in their charge sheet does not have those elements, and yet they call it fraud. So when we go to the matter was removed from Palm Ridge Magistrates Court to the High Court in Johannesburg. On the 30th of April this year, we sent them questions. We sent the NPA questions to say, guys, can you please explain, when you say fraud, what do you mean? What happened? Where's the misrepresentation? Who was the misrepresentation? And so on and so forth, about the details of their allegations, right? And also the PSMA. Just those two issues, PSMA and fraud. There's no racketeering, there's no money laundering, there's no charges of corruption.
As it was on the warrant of arrest.
As it was on the warrant of arrest. You see, a warrant of arrest that was issued on the 13th of December 2021 and executed on the 30th of August, or 29th of August, or 30th of August 2022, 10 months later. But anyway, so we asked them questions. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? And we gave them the questions, I think, around the 30th of April. When we got to court on the 11th of May, they asked for postponement of the case to the 11th of October so that they can answer those questions. They would require that much time to clarify exactly what they mean in their indictment. And I doubt that on the 11th of October, when we get to court, they will be ready. Because they want to drag this matter on and on and on and on and drag my name in the mud until they can't drag it in the mud anymore and their damage is done and they have killed a career and their mission is accomplished. Their mission
Mr. Molefe, just to interject there, when you're saying their mission and they want to drag my name in the mud, who is the they that you speak of? Who wants to drag? Because it sounds intentional. So who is intentional about dragging your name in the mud?
Wait, I'm talking this. I'm saying the NPA wants to prolong this thing so that my name is dragged in the mud.
As it is right now, you're saying that the charge sheet says something completely different to the warrant of arrest, and we've had several postponements when it comes to this matter being heard.
Right.
And yes, sir.
When it is in the High Court, it's called an indictment, not a charge sheet. It's a charge sheet in the Magistrates Court.
Yes, what I'm saying is that you were making mention of the charge sheet, that the charge sheet said something to the warrant of arrest that initially led to the bail being the level that it was at. Right now, the matter and the narrative, right, is that something was done wrong under your tenure, during your tenure at Transnet. And you're saying these people don't have proof of something of this sort. So in that case, what we're trying to establish is that then what happened? Because if you've done nothing wrong, you should not be in court. Then what is it that leads you to face a court if you're saying you've done nothing wrong?
I don't know, Faith. It is a question that I'm asking myself. That what is it that I have done wrong? It is a question that I have asked the NPA on the 30th of April. We send them a long list of questions saying, what exactly is it that I have done wrong? Instead of saying, all right, we will clarify what you have done wrong in the next week or two, or refer to page so and so of the indictment or the docket or this and that. They said, okay, we need until October to answer you. So I don't know what I have done wrong. I'm waiting for the NPA to tell me.
Mr. Molefe, we also heard this numerously, and it was played out in the media. It was played out during the Zondo Commission. And as I said, this evening I want us to actually understand the story from scratch, and so that we can have a better understanding of what is happening when it comes to the matter concerning you and your tenure during at Eskom as well as at Transnet. There was the other matter regarding the Guptas, the very infamous Guptas. Mr. Molefe, what was the nature of your relationship with the Guptas? Did you even have a relationship, or did you have a relationship with the Gupta family?
I have said I knew the Guptas. I knew them. I have been to their house, and I knew them. That is what I have said. I've never denied knowing the Guptas. I've never denied going to their house. But I can't remember that is a crime.
Were the Guptas trying to solicit contracts through you or through Trillion or through knowing you for the purpose of enriching themselves? Did they come to you and say, Brian, we want to have contracts and we want to have a stake at Transnet, or we want to have beneficiation at Transnet or at Eskom, wherever it is that you were, in leadership? Did they ever approach you with that particular mandate?
Faith, they didn't. Firstly, no? Secondly, those were not the allegations in the Public Protector's report. Thirdly, what you are saying now was never said at the Zondo Commission. It is a figment of your own imagination, or the people that you say that you had them say that they solicited this and this and that. They did not. And even at the Zondo Commission, there was no discussion of a bribe that they tried to pay me, how much it was, and what it was for. So
no, all I'm doing now is just establishing if there was a relationship or not a relationship with the Gupta family.
No,
you're saying you knew them, that's all.
All you're doing is regurgitating what was in the media that was said without evidence.
And that's why I'm asking it from your side of the story. And that's why we're having this conversation this evening, just to establish that you're saying that there was a relationship with the Gupta. You're saying that, of course, you're not going to deny the fact that you knew them, but you're not going to say that you benefited in any way from them or so. The corruption that is happening at Eskom, maybe let's go there. The corruption allegations that are happening at Eskom. You know, I was reading also that, in fact, at one stage we had third parties that were claiming that a mop, for example, bought a knee pad for about 4,025 rand, sold it to Eskom for 934,950 rand, toilet rolls and the like. These are all other issues that are also available in the media, obviously, when it comes to the corruption at Eskom. Again, during your tenure, you were the CEO at Eskom. What do you think actually went wrong when it comes to corruption at Eskom? And is the corruption as embedded as we make it out to be in the media at Eskom?
Faith, I don't know anything about the prices at which Eskom was buying the mop or the toilet paper at Eskom. Those were things that were said by Andre de Ruyter. And if you want an insight into those, you should ask Andre de Ruyter. I can tell you what I know about Eskom. The primary driver of cost at Eskom is not toilet paper or mops. The primary driver of cost at Eskom is primary energy cost. By that I mean coal. Coal was the problem. We spend over 40 billion rand in coal every year. The contract of the companies that sell the coal to Eskom was the issue that I had at Eskom. That was the corruption that involved Glencore, that involved the coal suppliers. They had contracts of up to 40 years to supply coal.
Were these what we call evergreen contracts? Those life-standing contracts?
No, but if you're going to allow me to speak, I will appreciate it, because that's why you called me here.
Yes, I'm just trying to establish, were those evergreen, those 40-year contracts that you're speaking about?
The contract of coal at Eskom left a lot to be desired. While I was there, the cost of primary energy never went up. In fact, I think they went up by about 1% or 2% when I was there. They had been escalating and ballooning out of control. Coal, not toilet paper, was the problem at Eskom. Toilet paper is just a diversion. It's a diversion, toilet paper and mops. It's a diversion by Andre de Ruyter to hide his own incompetence. The problem at Eskom is coal. Can't you hear me? I've been trying to say this for many years. The problem at Eskom is coal. The price that we are paying for coal. Glencore came to us. We had a contract for them to supply coal at 150 rand. They wanted us to pay them 530 rand per ton. Why aren't you asking me about that? Why you prefer to talk about toilet paper and mops, and not the fact that Glencore wanted to pay, want us to pay 530 rand for a contract that was signed at 150 rand. Today, that contract, Glencore is being paid 930 rand. That is what you should be focusing on, Faith, not toilet paper, with respect.
When you refused to pay that amount, what happened?
When I refused to pay that amount, all hell broke loose. And that is why we are where we are. And I have explained, if you go into the video of the results presentation, my last results presentation at Eskom, I explained exactly what happened. You in the media ignored what I said. I repeated that explanation at the Zondo Commission. When I was at the Zondo Commission, my testimony was not live on TV. The TV switched off. It was not everybody's testimony was Zondo Commission was on live. Every morning people watched Zondo Commission, except when I was speaking. You in the media did not cover it.
With all due respect, Mr. Molefe, don't paint us all with the same paintbrush. We are different. That's why I'm giving you this opportunity so that we can hear from your side.
No, I am, because you are in your questions, you are repeating this narrative. You are repeating this narrative and you're perpetuating it in your questions. Why aren't you asking about the primary cost of coal? Why aren't you asking about Glencore? The fact that Glencore has been found guilty of corruption in South America, in the United States, in the United Kingdom, in Europe, in West Africa. They say that they have paid bribes to heads of state and judges. The only place they didn't say so, they didn't do so. The only place where they have not been found guilty of bribing judges and the heads of state is South Africa. Do you believe that? Why aren't you probing? I've directed you there.
Well, right now we are asking you, and of course, those conversations with Glencore, we are going to do it. And I'm glad that you're mentioning that we have not probed enough when it comes to Glencore. And I'm going to put we as the media, and we're going to put we. But at this moment in time, I'm asking about you.
I would appreciate it, Faith, if tomorrow you can call Glencore and ask them, what happened to those bribery? They have been found guilty, unlike me. I've not been found guilty of any wrongdoing. I've not been found guilty of corruption. I've not been found guilty of money laundering. There are no allegations in front of a court against me being corrupt or having laundered money. There's nothing like that in front of a court. Glencore has been found guilty. Why don't you call them and ask them for an interview at 7 o'clock in the evening? To ask them this question, what was the Attorney General of New York thinking when he said Glencore is guilty?
For now, let me focus on you as well as your tenure during Eskom, which is the purpose of this conversation. And I appreciate it. You saying that you guys need to go and speak to Glencore and also be able to probe that. And we hear you on that. But for the purpose of this conversation this evening, let us also focus on you. You're saying that when you refused the price of coal, all hell broke loose. So therefore, all hell would only break loose if there are interested parties at Glencore that benefit from the high prices and the high stakes. Obviously the state is a shareholder at the power utility at Eskom. Was there political interference in the way in which coal was supplied at Eskom, particularly in the relationship between suppliers such as Glencore as well as Eskom? Were there interested parties that tried to benefit, politicians or political interested parties that tried to benefit off the pricing of Glencore?
Faith, did you listen to my statement to the Zondo Commission on my first day, on the day that Judge Zondo allegedly had COVID?
Yeah. And what I want to do right now also, Mr. Molefe, I'm taking it as that the rest of the South African community did not listen.
No. Faith, give me a chance to speak.
Sure.
You remember that I said that Glencore gave Mr. Ramaphosa shares in their Optimum coal company?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Have you asked anybody about it? You know, you talk to me like you found money under my mattress. I didn't have money under my mattress. And I'm not accused of having money under my mattress.
Yeah.
The people who were are not being asked questions by you.
By me? We can't say by me.
You are not asking them questions.
Mr. Molefe, I ask questions every single day. That is why we have conversations like this. And I ask the difficult questions.
Have you inquired about
110%. I've requested even a conversation with Cyril Ramaphosa, the current president of the Republic of the show. Until to this day, we're yet to be given an answer. And I will keep trying. Until we're able to find that, because the people of this country deserve an objective perspective about who leads them in this country. So to answer your question, yes, I have.
I will wait for that interview with a bated breath.
100%.
But no, for now, that I'm not accused of money laundering, I'm not accused of corruption, and I'm not accused of racketeering.
When you're looking at what was said even by the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan, relating to the arrest, when that subsequent arrest happened, I think it was the Public Enterprises Department was requested for commentary, and the Minister Pravin Gordhan was speaking about how it shows that justice is being served, or the arms of justice are actually working when it does not matter who you are in this particular South African context, and arrests can be made. You had mentioned Minister Pravin Gordhan earlier on in terms of involvement and interest. What is your take in the way in which Mr. Pravin Gordhan has run the Ministry of Public Enterprises, the interests as a shareholder at Eskom, as well as other parastatals in the country? Has it been to the benefit or to the detriment of state-owned enterprises, in your understanding?
When he said what he said at the beginning of your question, he was hallucinating. He has never come up and said and asked questions about how money was found under mattress of somebody in Wombat. So when he said justice has been done and doesn't matter who you are and so on, he was hallucinating. He probably saw the warrant of arrest, which I think was issued, was not issued properly, because the charges in the warrant of arrest are not in the indictment. So he must have been hallucinating. That's all I can say. And he's inconsistent because he did not ask about the evidence of corruption where it emerged elsewhere. Nobody has interrogated the statement that I made on my first day at the Zondo Commission about the fact that they were trying to extort a very high price for the coal out of us. Instead, people have been mesmerized by the fight of Mr. Andre de Ruyter against the price of toilet paper. That is what has mesmerized this country. This is what Andre de Ruyter is a hero, because he pointed out the price of toilet paper at Eskom and not the price of coal. So, Mr. Gordhan, with respect, when he said what he said at the beginning of the question, he was hallucinating. Number two, he failed to go and understand what drives the price of primary energy at Eskom. The single biggest expenditure item in the Eskom budget is primary energy. Understandably so. Right now, as we're having electricity, it's because we're burning coal. We buy that coal. It is the single biggest expenditure at Eskom. Nobody is interested in it. Nobody is interested in who gets that money and how they get it.
Why do you think we're not talking about it enough?
Oh, because there is a narrative. There is a narrative that Brian Molefe is corrupt, number one. And number two, there is this thing that is called state capture. Now, state capture is neither fish nor fowl. You know why I say state capture is neither fish nor fowl? It's not been properly defined. What is state capture? Because it's not a crime. There is no crime in our books, in our law books, called state capture. Now, to say that people have done state capture, which is not properly defined, and are guilty of state capture, which is not a crime, is rich. It's a diversion from the real issues, from the real crimes.
What are those real crimes in your perspective?
I don't know, but I've given some indications of what I think they might be, and you have just agreed that we have not been getting answers on those questions. I said it many times. I said it when the Tuli Madonsela report came out. Go and listen to the video. It's still on social media, incidentally, where I said what I think happened and why we are where we are. I repeated it at the Zondo Commission on my first day at the commission, and when I did, There was COVID in the room. The commission was postponed for about 3 to 4 weeks, and I was not called immediately back to the stand. My testimony at the Zondo Commission was not live. Metro FM did not cover it. SABC did not cover it. Nobody covered my testimony live because they were not interested or were afraid of what I was saying. Nobody listened.
I've got more questions after the break.
Hi, Faith. This guy, asking him questions instead of answering them, he's being emotional. If he is right and everything he did was correct, why is he being emotional when you're asking him questions? This is an opportunity for him to clear himself if he says he did everything right.
Hi, good evening, Faith. Oh, all I want to hear is this toilet paper and mop, because the toilet paper and mop making the Molefe angry. There is something there behind this toilet paper and mop. Why is he getting angry about that? He jumped to Glencore. He must just reveal if it was his company or his shares for the toilet paper and mop. I want to know about the toilet paper and mop. Why is he running away from that? Why toilet paper and mop make him angry? I'm going to make a slogan of toilet paper and mop.
Good evening, Faith. I'm glad that we finally having this conversation about the state object, because this thing, it's very deep. It's very deep, and they are trying so hard to divert us from the real problem. Like now, what Mr. Molefe is saying about the diversion from the coal prices. This is what we always knew. And I always asked, if they said the Guptas were corrupting and were doing all those things, but they were delivering the coal at a cheaper price than the other competitors who wanted to stay in power. The aristocracy just want us to push and to control us. It's more of dictatorship.
Good evening, Faith, and the team in the studio. This corruption watchdog withdrawal shows that they knew after the elections that there's no way they're going to escape this one, because the damage is already done, and Brian and his family suffered all these years over nothing that was baseless. And him and Machela Koko and his team, and their team, they saved the grid from collapsing. But nowadays we have people who doesn't even have the direction or have the knowledge of what's the grid and how many megawatts we need to have the power in SA. And at least now it's better with the people that are just enrobed. But we know who the market they were referring to after the election, and we know who were going to eat during the tenure when he wasn't in the office. Now they ate, now they want him back. We know who these people are. Come on.
All right, I'm going to keep taking in your voice notes, and thank you so much for holding. Let me take Calvin first in Johannesburg before I go to Mr. Molefe to respond. Calvin, hi. Calvin in Johannesburg has disappeared. Mr. Molefe, obviously we've got different views regarding the conversation that we are having this evening, but I want to zero in on something that you're speaking about, and specifically looking at Glencore and relating to also what you said in terms of that Zondo Commission, because you're saying, but I also want to bring in our Metro FM listeners into their confidence, for those that were not watching during the time and for those that are hearing this conversation for the very first time, because you did say that, that this particular commission, the Zondo Commission at the time, was being very sympathetic towards Glencore over its relationship with the President Ramaphosa. And at the time, in fact, President Ramaphosa was once Glencore's local empowerment partner at the time that it had acquired Optimum coal holdings, and that was in 2012. And then you also made mention that your interview, your conversation during that particular time was shut off. It did not happen. It did not go live. Do you believe that there is an attempt to protect President Ramaphosa at the expense of getting to the bottom of what happened at the power utility Eskom and why we have this particular issue around load shedding, around allegations of corruption, and just how far the corruption goes up the food chain? Is there an attempt to protect him and his interest, or is involvement in the whole party?
What I've said in the past, including at the Zondo Commission, was that I had a feeling that the Commission was sweeping matters under the carpet. I said this at the Commission. And now when I look back at the Commission and its recommendations and so on, I can see that there was a clear attempt to sweep matters under the carpet. The difficult issues that I raised did not make it to the recommendations in the Commission, did not make it to the findings in the Commission. I don't know why, but for some reason, matters were swept under the carpet, as far as I'm concerned. And that is why we are taking the Zondo Commission on review.
I'm going to take Joel in Emalahleni. Joel, good evening.
You say?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
No, I'm fine. Faith, running around allegations won't solve our problems. But I'd like to think that Brian is here today. How are you, Mr. Molefe?
He can hear you. Yeah, he can hear you, Joel. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Molefe, you've done a very great job. Like, to be honest, I would love for you to come back to Eskom with Mr. Machila Koko. They are very incompetent people as we speak. Faith, we shouldn't run around and judging people from what they've done. What Mr. Brian was doing in Eskom was an incredible job. Mr. Brian did everything for Eskom. I mean, like, even in Transnet. Now, running around allegations, saying what happened to Eskom, talking about the issue of tissues. The issue of tissue, the basic primary issue here was coal, as he was saying. So now if you're going to run around with tissues and all those stuff, we're not going forward. But then Brian did everything. I wish that Brian could come back. And look now, we're talking about allegations of whether they found money in the mattress or something. But then I understand what Brian is. I understand Brian's frustration and whatever Brian is going through. But then let's just take this into consideration that now we have to get a way forward going forward, because I understand that Brian has to go back. I want Brian and Machila Koko to go back
to Eskom. I hear you, Joe, and I thank you for that comment, but it doesn't change the fact that the matter is currently in court, and it wouldn't be doing justice to this conversation if we do not bring up the issues around why are we seeing these matters in court? Why are we seeing, that particular matter of the PFMA as well as fraud? Why do we see that? Why did we have a warrant of arrest that says something completely different to the charge sheet? If we don't go into those nitty-gritties, because currently it was also at the Johannesburg High Court. If we don't go into those matters, then we're not doing justice to a whole holistic conversation. And I hear you in terms of saying what you wish that Mr. Molefe was back at Eskom, and that's why we brought him here, so that he can have the opportunity to say his side of the story. We will bring up what was said at the Zondo Commission. We will bring up what was said, the narrative that is out there, and Mr. Molefe himself will clarify. We won't clarify. He will clarify, because he is the subject of conversation that we're speaking about today. And tomorrow, of course, we'll have other subject matters as well that we are speaking about. Mr. Molefe, I would like your opinion around how do we get our state-owned enterprises. I mean, you're saying here that it's significantly to do with leadership. Do you think that the state needs less involvement in order for parastatals to work? That the state should just let the CEOs and the board do their job without wanting to interfere? Or do you think that this move of privatization could perhaps be a better way to go in order to solve for some of the issues and the misgivings at state-owned enterprises? Is privatization indeed the true solution to solving our SOEs, in your opinion?
No, I want to address a spectacular display of ignorance. You know that the fact that I'm in court does not mean that I'm guilty of anything. Section 35 of the Constitution says you are not guilty until proven guilty. You are talking as if I'm in court because I've been found guilty of anything. I haven't been found guilty of anything.
Are you not in court because you've been charged?
Yes.
Yes, so that's what I was saying, that you're in court because you've been charged, not because you're guilty. I'm not even here to pronounce guilty or innocent. That would be an injustice to you. That's not my job. My job is not to declare whether you're guilty or innocent.
Why are you talking as if, hey, he's in court?
No, nobody's talking as like that, Mr. Molefe. I'm saying that you are charged.
Don't talk like that. Don't make me feel stupid. You've just talked like that. He's in court and he must answer and so on and so forth. But I haven't been found guilty of anything.
Yes, but you are in court, are you not?
Doesn't mean anything.
Yes.
You know, somebody can stand up and say, so-and-so is a rapist. Does that make them a rapist?
Nobody's talking about rape here. I'm saying that, are you in court currently? Yes, you are in court. Have you been charged, Mr. Molefe? Yes, you've been charged. So I'm not saying that, are you guilty or innocent? That's not my job, though. My job is not to say you're guilty or innocent. My job is to say you are in court currently, which you are. It's a fact. Have you been charged? Yes, you have. It's a fact. And I'm giving you an opportunity to say, no, Faith, these allegations that have been brought before me are just a witch hunt or not. That's all. That's all my job is. Not to pronounce guilt or innocence. That would be me not doing my job as a broadcaster. I'm not here to do that. That's why I will go back to my question around what is your opinion regarding solving the issue around our state-owned enterprises? Do we need to privatize? Is privatize actually a solution? Mine is not to pronounce guilt or innocence. That's not my job as a broadcaster. Certainly not.
Yeah, but don't treat people who are appearing in court as if they're guilty of anything. It's actually it's against our constitution, against our Bill of Rights. I actually don't think privatization is a solution to South Africa's problem.
What would be the apt solution then in terms of state-owned enterprises? Because these are our state assets. We're entering into a 7th administration. The 7th administration needs to work, and it needs to work for all South Africans. It needs to be an inclusive economy where the black majority also have equal beneficiation in these state assets. What would be the solution in your perspective?
Yeah, you don't ask questions. You actually make statements, but it's okay. And you express your views through your questions, and it is quite clear what your views are. But anyway, the solution is to get competent people to run these entities, not people like de Ruyter or Pravin Gordhan.
Would you come back to Eskom if they asked you?
I don't know.
What about Transnet?
I don't know.
I appreciate it. Mr. Molefe, thank you so much for availing yourself this evening for the conversation that you've had with us regarding your take in terms of state-owned enterprises, but also your tenure at Eskom as well as at Transnet. Well, there you have it, a conversation with Brian Molefe, the former Eskom CEO as well as the former Transnet CEO. Thank you so much to Paul Mtekgaka for allowing us the time to take about 5 minutes of his time to actually allow us to talk, and much appreciated. He joins you between now as well as midnight. Listen, there's the conversation. You have it. Do with it what you would like. And of course, the podcast, as you know, is readily available for you. Until you and me talk again. Bye-bye.
Can we just talk?
Metro FM Talk with Faith Mangope. Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.